Today, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's about U.S. military veterans. As an Air Force and disabled vet, I am so passionate about what we can do to ensure that those who have served and continue to serve have the best health care, have the best avenues and access to benefits that they've earned. Welcome. On today's Andrew Yang's policy, I have committed myself to creating a series of Andrew Yang's policies. Why? Because many people ask the same question over and over and over. Andrew Yang has the most comprehensive list of plans and proposals for what he and his cabinet and his organization within the White House will commit to instituting once he is elected to the U.S. presidency. Today, we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's about U.S. military veterans. As an Air Force and disabled vet, I am so passionate about what we can do to ensure that those who have served and continue to serve have the best health care, have the best avenues and access to benefits that they've earned. The one thing that caught my eye before I even read about this policy was when Andrew Yang has titled his policy for military veterans, More Than a Handshake. So under his website, yang2020.com, Andrew Yang has put together over 100 policies. And the one that jumps out to me the most, and this is why I'm kicking it off this way, in the series that I'm creating for Andrew Yang, for the people, in order to ensure that his information is being put out to the public so that you make an educated vote, an educated decision on who you want to lead the U.S. in the coming election. More than a handshake. My plan to better serve our veterans. Andrew Yang's policy on taking care of the military veterans. He starts off with a quote, which says, "If we're going to send our men and women into harm's way and break them, it's our responsibility to fix them when they come home." Somewhere between 7 and 8% of the U.S. population has served in the military. These brave individuals took on the sacred duty of protecting our democracy and making the world a safer place. The debt we owe to everyone who took on this responsibility, especially those who sacrificed their lives, cannot be repaid. But we must try. And we must do much better than we're doing right now. There are many issues unique to the veteran community that we need to address. The transition to civilian life should be smoother, and we need to put more support structures in place. Public misconceptions have led to issues with employment. Homelessness is a perennial problem, and the VA, especially the Veterans Health Administration, can do much more to improve the well-being of those who serve. These heroes protect and serve us during their tenure, but they come home to a quick thank you and an economy that isn't set up to help them succeed. We owe them more than a handshake. By Andrew Yang. So let's look at something here, okay? In his policy, he talks about the plan that he has created and a proposal for what he will do for the military veterans once he is elected as President of the United States. Returning Heroes Initiative is one of the first things he talks about. In here, he talks about our service members live a life much different than the rest of us during their service. This experience can make the transition to civilian life difficult. All members of the U.S. military should receive training as they end their service that makes them transition as soon as possible. So what he has created here is something that he calls a reverse boot camp. Now, this is not new, but he has a few new things in here that I think are worth checking out, and definitely more comprehensive than some of the other candidates out there today that's running for the same office. In the reverse boot camp, he says, when starting their service, members of the armed forces go through a boot camp in order to ensure that they're ready for the rigors of service. As they end their service, they should go through an equally important training program on elements of civilian life that would not be second nature to someone who has a regimented routine over the past several years. The reverse boot camp would ensure that all veterans are aware of the general timeline of issues they'll face. Recent veterans face different challenges than those who have been out of the armed forces for a longer period of time. For example, immediately after their discharge from military, veterans often face issues with adjusting to self-directed scheduling and finding a new career, and issues which are resolved over time. This reverse boot camp would teach valuable skills required for civilian adults. Here are some of the things that he talks about that would be part of the reverse boot camp. One of these items, grocery shopping and nutrition, cooking and creating and sticking to a personal schedule without the regimented schedule enforced by the military. So something similar, but it'd be a gradual transition after you're out of the military. There's a lot of programs that help you transition, and which are maybe like a week-long type program that the military does do now. They call it transition assistance. They call it, different name, GPS, and so on and so forth. So we know that there's programs out there, but most of them are about, like I said, a week or less long, and they give you information that is helpful, but there's much more that you need to do. And well, let me continue reading, because in here he does talk about mentors. He talks about long-term assistance. He talks about free financial literacy. So there's a lot more to this. So anyway, the second thing that he mentions here is financial literacy and training, such as creating and sticking to a personal budget, personal banking, retirement savings, and paying bills. Most of us, if you're in the military, then you know that you have your paycheck first and the 15th. The creditors know you get paid first and the 15th. So most of them work really well with you, but there are some out there that will try to take advantage of you. And when you come in early, as a young adult, 18, 19, 20 years old or so, you sometimes tend to want to overspend. And when you overspend, you start to get credit. And there are so many creditors out there that are looking for young military men and women that they can take advantage of. So when they prey on you and they get you to get indebted to them, then you do run into some serious problems. And so sometimes that carries you all the way through to the end of your tour. And when you do get out, you carry that debt with you, and now you're struggling because you're not sure how to handle that. So this is great, because free financial literacy and training is another part of what Mr. Yang has proposed as well. So in addition to that, he talks about the, on top of the financial literacy training, there are a couple of things that I want to mention. There are also needs to be laws and put in place so that veterans are protected from payday lenders and other predatory businesses. Like I said, those are some of the things that he's doing to make sure you get protection. This would involve creating zones around bases where these businesses could not operate, lending institutions specifically for veterans that could provide financial assistance if needed, coupled with more financial literacy training and financial assistance for veterans who are having difficulty paying off predatory loans. If it would definitely ensure that all veterans are aware of the myriad programs available to them, including employment, health, and other support services. Additionally, it would involve a lot of information and training on finding a new career outside of the military. These would include setting salary expectations for the private sector based on field and qualifications, of course, translate military skills to civilian skills, creating a resume and finding job opportunities, interviewing. And as you know, these are some of the things that um, a lot of agencies since the Gulf War and we understood over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a lot of veterans that come back from these long-term wars or contingencies, and it has caused a lot of mental anguish, depression, a lot of psychological problems and conditioning that a lot of people just didn't get over quickly. And some of them actually departed from the military with these problems. And so in order to put yourself back into the labor force, or in order for a veteran to engage in treatment and work, um, sometimes you need some help to get that done. Now, I do a lot of career coaching as well as mentoring for veterans, and one of the biggest things is take a look at my resume, and I'm trying to transition from being an infantryman to a financial advisor. So those are things that we have to deal with every day, and I see them frequently because as a mentor, as a career coach, I actually talk to veterans constantly and help them with this particular sector of the benefits that are allotted for them. And as a government or federal worker here in the States, I actually have a direct knowledge of the process, what you need to do to go from creating the job experience, the resumes, the cover letters, the whole shebang, the interview process, all the way to onboarding with the company, and then how to expand or scale your career opportunities to a point where you're really taking yourself above the poverty line, so to speak, in your career. So these are critical areas that I definitely support, and I appreciate Andrew Yang for giving us a comprehensive look at what he plans to do for the veterans. So this reverse boot camp would involve a number of group classes and individual consultations with experts in the military, veterans, and private sector experts in order to ensure that all veterans are equipped to successfully transition to civilian life. So we talk about mentorship, we talk about coaching, we talk about consulting and all these type of career opportunities and assistance that will help you to be gainfully employed. And so he has a separate section just for mentorship and employment. So we won't delve in that too deep, but I just want to give you an idea of what and how comprehensive he's looked into and wants to implement these programs for military veterans, because I don't think a lot of veterans actually have taken a look at what he's offering. The GI Bill, education improvements. Under the GI Bill in the education section, he says, the GI Bill is one of our best ways to thank the brave individuals who serve this country. While this benefit program provides flexibility and training to our veterans as they transition to civilian life, there are ways that it can be improved to make this transition better. The application and payment system needs to be modernized and streamlined so that our veterans don't need to jump through additional hoops in order to use their GI Bill. Approvals should be on entire courses of study instead of a semester by semester basis, thus making it easier and less stressful to continue at your institution. The qualified courses of study should also be expanded to allow for more varied career pursuits after service, while also providing protections for our veterans from for-profit institutions that wouldn't provide a significant chance of employment after graduation, certification, or completion of the course. Any institution that receives tuition through this program should be required to report on employment numbers and be held accountable if they're not meeting certain standards. Military serve, sorry about that. I am trying to make sure I give you the exact information here. Military service provides protection to all 50 states. As such, all veterans should receive in-state tuition automatically from any public institution. Um, that's very powerful because, as we know, a lot of times if you're not living in California but you want to go to USC, Or if you're in Florida and you want to go to University of Texas, then you're out of state, right? But if it says military service provides protection to all 50 states, then why shouldn't you receive in-state tuition automatically from any public institution, regardless of how long they've held residency or without any restriction? We travel, we PCS, we go TDY, we do all of this, and then we find a place that we want to live. And if it's not in one of those states that we previously left, but we've been there for 2-3 years plus, why shouldn't we be able to go ahead and take advantage of the in-state tuition? Because that's a dramatic difference in pricing. Schools should also be pushed to give unlimited course credit for equivalent courses for military training, especially for all service members who receive additional training in specialized fields. The VA should work with all schools to create an equivalent courses list so it's easy for veterans to figure out what they're qualified to receive credit for. Wow, I love it. All schools should also have clear and flexible policies for enrollment and withdrawal for veterans and active service members. Exactly. And all of this includes, excuse me, flexible policies. I totally agree when it comes to school. You don't want to run into any problems with withdrawing early or if you have to move or something like that. So some of these policies should include early enrollment periods as well as late enrollment periods without penalty or fee. Rules on what proportion of an individual class's coursework must be completed and to what standard for credit to be issued in case of a call to duty, active duty. Basically, he recommends 85% of work completed with a passing grade would be sufficient. Tuition refunds in case coursework is interrupted because of a call to active duty as well. Obviously, with the way things are going, and we obviously know about Syria and the Kurds and all that kind of stuff, we never know what's going to happen. And, you may get called back to duty, and after you've kind of put yourself in a position on a road to great educational opportunities and then maybe a career after that, and it gets interrupted because of circumstances within the government. So this is a great proposal that I think will be very helpful um, for all military and veterans. So military training, the gold standard. In this section, Mr. Yang talks about military training being the best of the best. So in short, if somebody is qualified to do a job in the military, they should be qualified to do that job in the U.S. as a civilian. Too many of our veterans have been trained to a high level in skills that aren't respected when they get back home. These veterans often need to spend thousands of dollars and a significant amount of time receiving a certification to do a job that they've been doing throughout their service. It's an impediment to veteran employment. It disrespects the work done in the military, and quite frankly, it's wasteful. We need to work with the state licensing board and other organizations that are involved in certifications to ensure that those who are trained by the military can seamlessly transition to a job in the civilian economy that they are qualified to do. CDLs and EMT certifications, as well as paramedic and nurses and other jobs that require certification, should all see a much easier transition from practicing them in the military and being employed in that job based upon what they've done for years. They should be able to go outside of the service and continue working in that field if they so choose. Now let's talk about employment and veteran business. Now, as an entrepreneur, as one that helps entrepreneurs, as well as a coach and mentor in the career and consulting and career advancement, this is one of the most special areas of this program that I believe he has created something very powerful if we just give him the opportunity to put it into place. Employment and veteran business. Working to ensure that license and certification standards transfer between military and civilian jobs is just a start to ensuring that we do everything we can to help veterans find and maintain employment. But there's a lot more we need to do. I've met with several veteran groups. Andrew Yang says he has met with several veteran groups, and one vet told him something very profound. It's not that employers just aren't pro-veteran. They're actually looking for reasons to say no and rule you out because they think you're damaged goods. There is a general belief among Americans that most veterans suffer from a mental health issue, despite that number being much, much smaller. The first thing we need to do is better inform the American people, and in particular, employers on this reality to combat this prejudice against hiring veterans. Wow, that's deep. Because if you look around, we're in a time where veterans are valued a lot more than they used to be. But there are still pockets out there that I have heard from veterans, and I have gotten requests for consulting by veterans that have had that challenge. I've been in meetings and sessions and heard from veterans that were not given the opportunity that they were definitely qualified to do, because they did allude to the fact that there was either PTSD or some type of mental concern. So there are ways around it, and we have to work with that. But it is definitely true that this is an issue. We also need to invest in and create mentorship programs for veterans. Nonprofits such as American Corporate Partners, which I am a member of, and I have been with them for over 5 years as a mentor to veterans. So I'm very proud of the work we do with ACP. So, but they're a great nonprofit. So as American Corporate Partners are doing great work at matching veterans with mentors who can help them find and adapt to a new career, we should invest in other nonprofits and create programs within the federal government that also help the veterans adjust to civilian life. And we should also incentivize businesses to create mentorship programs internally that provide both a non-veteran and veteran mentor to newly hired veterans. These mentors could help veterans in their careers and also advocate internally for veteran candidates to be hired and promoted. This happens in the federal government already. Veterans are already given incentives as well as benefits of being a veteran when you apply for federal work. There's a percentage that you get on your evaluation when you apply for a federal job that will give you at least a foot in the door. Then it's based on your experience compared to everybody else, but you do get extra points for being a veteran when you apply for federal jobs. One thing he mentioned there that I wanted to just hit on for a few seconds. Veterans help them adapt to new careers. These mentors can help veterans. Yeah, I mean, this is essentially what we do. At American Corporate Partners, we do help veterans transition and help them with the career moves and career decisions that they make. So yeah, this is spot on. I like the way he's doing this. One thing that I think is very valuable that I wanted to highlight was that we should incentivize business to create mentorship programs internally, and this is veteran and non-veterans that will be mentors to the newly hired veterans. If a company really wants to stand out and they really want to put their money where the mouth is, then if you support veterans, then yes, this is a way that you can really help them after they get hired to navigate the civilian life and to maximize their potential within your organization. Because the data shows that when you do bring on veterans, most of the time you will see an increase in commitment, loyalty, and just production. So it's a great environment when you bring on veterans to your organization. So in order to help veterans find fulfilling and stable careers, the government should research and maintain a database of in-demand skills and professions and match veterans to these jobs based on their skills. The government can also partner with businesses in these areas to match up qualified candidates and incentivize businesses to hire veterans. This can take the form of subsidies, both for the hiring itself and also for the investment in helping the veteran transition from their career in the military to their career in that business. Since the rigidity in culture and requirements and networking required can be very difficult, and a transition and learning window is often required. Finally, the federal government should be providing resources to veteran-run businesses. This can take the form of initial investment, low-cost financing options, and preferential treatment. That's pretty cool. So if you have a business or you're thinking about starting a business and you're a veteran, then you definitely should look into the Small Business Administration, SBA, and find out how you can, one, utilize the tools that are available for small business startup, and look into the veteran certifications so that you can get yourself on the right list to be recognized as a small business. And if you fall into some of the socioeconomic statuses, what they call 8A certifications, then that's a boost for your business as well. And you do get some benefits as a disabled vet, as a business that has the category of being offered set aside business from the government. Whereas a set aside is when there's no competition, and because you have the qualified type of business that they're looking for, then you will basically be asked if you would like to take on this particular contract within the government. So the benefits are there within the federal government. If you are an entrepreneur, if you have a small business, then look at the Small Business Administration website. There may be one in your local community, and basically look at the benefits that they offer for veterans starting a business. And I, like I said, this is something that I talk to veterans about all the time with ACP. So it's a very, very robust um, set of opportunities out there to get you going in the right direction if you're truly ready to do that. One thing I wanted to mention about some of the organizations here in California, I know there's one called the Rosie Network that is very, very active in providing opportunities for veterans in business, networking, and a lot of educational benefits with that organization. So they're doing great things here in California. Okay, so the Veterans Health Initiative. I know this is a hot topic. Recently, as it is it's October, middle of October here, there's been a lot of talk about Andrew Yang's Medicare for All. What is his health position? What is, some people say that he says Medicare for All from a socialistic perspective where everybody gets it. There's no private insurance. Yet, there, um, he mentions that he doesn't disapprove of private insurance, but the preponderance of the offering is for the government to take care of the health and reduce the cost to a point where the government is paying for it. Um, because we are the richest country in the world, we should be able to take care of all of our people. But that's a policy and a topic for another video. Today, we're going to talk about Veterans Health Initiative. So my vision of the future for American healthcare involves covering everyone, even veterans, under a Medicare for All style program. However, the VA would still have a role in veteran health in this system, transitioning to a focus on veteran-specific issues, i.e. prosthetics, chronic ailments related to battlefield injuries, mental health, and PTSD, etc., and maintain expertise in these areas. Until that transition, there are still many ways we can improve treatment for our veterans, starting with easing the transition from TRICARE to the VA system through improved administration and enrollment. Once in that system, we need to focus on increasing options and improving access, especially in rural areas, without succumbing to calls to privatize the program. Now, as you can see, he's not saying it's impossible. It's just that when it comes to our veterans, then absolutely, the government should take care of that. Most of us that did go into the war zones, if it was from Vietnam to Korea to Philippines to Afghanistan, Iraq, we did that. And so now you have Syria you want to add to the list as well. So yeah, it's a very serious thing to be put in harm's way. And then you come home, even if you don't retire, even if you don't have a pension. But when you have the disabilities, then the Veteran Administration or the government should definitely step up and make sure that you're taken care of. Now, once in that system, we need to focus on increasing options and improving access, especially in rural areas, um, and basically not allow the private companies or the for-profit health system um, to try to take over the program or lobby for more access. What we want to do is improve the health and increase the options. The first thing we need to do is recognize that providing for health care of our veterans is a moral imperative, and we need to fully fund a system that works to maximize veteran health. In addition to funding the operations of veteran health care, we need to ensure that we're creating a budget that allows for proper research into issues that affect the veteran community, in particular suicide prevention and PTSD/TBI treatment, says post-traumatic stress syndrome, as well as terminal brain injury treatments, long care or long-term effects of battlefield-related injuries, exposure to substances unique to combat environments, and similar areas should be researched to find the optimal treatments. And the VA, in partnership with CDC, is best equipped to do so. Staffing needs to be improved. Salaries and benefits should be increased in order to fully staff and maintain best-in-class doctors and administrative staff. Clear metrics for success in each role should be established, and individuals who are not measured up need to be let go. There are also needs to excuse me. There is also need to there's also needs to be a push to hire doctors who specialize in treatment of women's issues, including sexual trauma and issues facing our transgender veterans, as well as expanding options for these veterans. On a similar note, we should investigate ways to improve and expand the Choice Act to lower wait times and expand access and increase the efficacy of our electronic records database and make that easier for veterans to find health care wherever they are. Now, I love that. Right now, we know if you're a veteran, you know that there is a choice system. If you go to the VA or if you contact them and you want an appointment, if they cannot see you within 30 days, then they give you the option to locate a doctor or medical facility within your general area. And you get to see a doctor without having to travel, for miles and miles and miles. So I think that's a great program. I've used it, I've had access to it, and I've had no problems with it. So, I agree that that's a great program, and maybe there's a way to improve it, but it's working well on this side as far as from a patient perspective. Substance abuse treatment should be expanded with more available treatment centers and long-term support, as helping with addiction issues will reduce many other issues for veterans. Some of these issues are homelessness, unemployment, and suicide. The same should be true for general mental health care. In order to improve access and efficiency, many more general practitioners should be open, or um, especially those in rural areas, so that no veteran needs to travel a significant distance to see a doctor. So this is where the Choice Act has become critical as a solution, basically to helping the military veterans get treatment in a timely manner. Obama obviously championed this and helped this to come into the VA in his term, and fortunately, it has continued. So the Choice Act definitely helps with improving access and efficiency, um, especially for those in rural areas that can't seem to get to a doctor because of distance as well as the time. If a veteran needs to travel for a specialized treatment center, transportation should be provided or subsidized, which is the case as well. So this is great that those programs will continue and be improved upon. Controlled substance exceptions. So this is interesting because I know Andrew Yang has a different perspective based upon what's going on in the world today on some of the classified controlled substances. The scientific evidence that certain controlled substances, particularly marijuana, are particularly effective at treating certain ailments common to veterans, i.e. PTSD, and pain management. While I'm in favor, Andrew Yang says he's in favor of legalizing marijuana at the federal level. If that takes time, we need to provide waivers for veterans so they can receive this treatment as well as prescribe it through the VA. This includes waivers and prescriptions for veterans residing in states that currently don't allow for personal use or medical exceptions for marijuana use. We should also fund research into other controlled substances that have been shown to hold promise for treating PTSD and other diseases, and provide similar waivers and prescriptions should these other substances prove efficient. We owe it to our veterans to do everything possible to help them manage any health issues that they may have. Ending veteran suicide. As we all know, veterans have a tough time when they come back from a 10 to 15-year war. When they spend so much time in these war zones, it becomes very, very challenging. Um, some people say it's equivalent for some people that have seen people go down, gunned down, stabbed, IED explosions right in front of their eyes, and their friends are here one minute and gone the next. Listening to gunfire on the other end of a phone while you're taking a call from your convoy that gets attacked, and all of a sudden it goes dead. These are serious and long-term problems, and they could cause some veterans to come back home, and if they don't receive the attention and care as Andrew Yang has laid out, then they could be part of the next wave veteran suicide. 22 veterans commit suicide every single day. That's the data. That number is 22 too high. And Andrew Yang says he's committed to decreasing it, and at least by half by the end of his first term in office, providing all other services to increase the stability veterans feel and ensuring a successful transition to civilian life should help decrease veteran suicide. But there is more we can do to combat this scourge. Treatment doesn't work if it's not sought out. 80% of veterans cite embarrassment or shame as a barrier to asking for mental health treatment. We need to combat this by destigmatizing veteran treatment. It can start with an initiative to identify high-ranking veterans who receive mental health treatment to speak to these issues publicly, and it can continue with information provided during the reverse boot camp mentioned earlier. We also need to increase the funding and reach of crisis lines to ensure that any veteran has immediate access to individuals who can direct them to mental health services or to a mental health professional who can provide immediate counseling and treatment. Finally, as gun suicide disproportionately affects veterans, we should provide free gun safes and storage for all veterans, which has been shown to significantly reduce suicide risks. If you have a weapon, please be responsible and be concerned of these particular statistics. Every Vet Under a Roof initiative. Homelessness disproportionately affects veterans. This is unacceptable, and I commit to decreasing it substantially during my first term as president, Andrew Yang says. It's important to note that there are differences in chronic and situational veteran homelessness. Improving stability and employment will help primarily with situational homelessness, while chronic homelessness is usually related to health or mental health issues. This is dear to me because in 1998, after I left the military, I was going through some family problems, and I found myself moving to a state out of my normal state, left my parents and everything. My family was in another state. We had some issues, and so ran into some problems, and I had to fend for myself. So yeah, I understand situational homelessness. It was something that I had to deal with for a period of time. Therefore, definitely passionate about fixing this problem. Here, I think in Southern California, they have thrown a lot of money towards helping homelessness in general, as well as veterans specifically, and still have not figured out how to solve the problem. I read an article that in New Orleans, they either solved or came close to solving the problem, and they're well on their way to either solving it or now on the other side of the problem. So it can be handle. And I believe that Andrew Yang is the right person, the right president to make sure this happens. So he goes on to say, helping with their transition to civilian life and increasing employment and stability is a huge step in decreasing the number of situationally homeless veterans. Improving mental health resources and treatment is a huge step in combating chronic homelessness. In order to directly tackle this issue, however, we need to start by establishing a census-like team that will research and find all of our homeless veterans and get them and their information into the VA system. You know, in California, in Southern California, specifically San Diego County, 9% of the of the homeless population is veterans. That equates to there's about 9,000 homeless people in the San Diego County area, and out of that 9,000, it was about 8% were military veterans. Way too high. Way too high. So with this particular census-like team going around and documenting all of the homeless people, this will allow the health professionals to treat any medical, mental, or physical health issues that are contributing to the homelessness, as well as enroll them in other programs to help with employment, financial literacy, and general life skills. We also need to help veterans afford housing through financial literacy, assistance in saving up for a down payment or security deposit, including by instituting programs while they're still in active service to dedicate portions of their pay specifically to retirement and post-discharge housing. That's pretty cool. So, all right, let me see what's going on here. So including by instituting programs while they're still in active duty to dedicate portions of their pay specifically to retirement and post-discharge housing. That's pretty cool. Mortgage options, and if it comes to it, assistance in foreclosure proceedings, including incentives for mortgage companies to find alternatives to foreclosure. Would that be nice? We can also do more to increase the availability of affordable housing options. A great example of this is the Tiny Houses Project by the Veterans Community Project. Nonprofits and the government can work together to innovate in this space and ensure that no veteran falls through the cracks. Man. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the things that I think are very powerful and should be utilized. And if they're not being utilized, then, you know, we're failing our people. And we definitely can do better. So one thing that I would like to leave you with, because this is near and dear to my heart, Andrew Yang has put together a very comprehensive policies and proposals and plans that will create the freedom and the attention and the future or forward-looking policies that we need for the next phase of the U.S. leadership and influence in the world. That includes taking care of our veterans first and foremost. Andrew Yang's motto is humanity first. It's not left, it's not right, not Democrat, not just Republican. It's forward. It's forward. He keeps telling us over and over and over. It's about moving the country forward. We're not leaving behind the military veterans. We're not leaving behind the immigrants. We're not leaving behind the natives. We're not leaving behind any race, any color, any creed. Everybody has an opportunity to succeed under the leadership of Mr. Andrew Yang. So this is just one in the many policy series that I'm going to talk about on videos just like this, that I want you to please take the time, check them out, and make an educated decision on what does Andrew Yang bring to the table. You may hear a soundbite. You may hear explanations by people that have no idea what he's talking about. You may listen to CNN and you get one opinion. You may listen to NBC, you get another opinion. If you listen to MSNBC, you'll hear people that don't understand who Andrew Yang is, and they don't understand his policies. Therefore, they don't provide a legitimate look at what he's trying to do, what he proposes, and how he's rolling out his program. So let me leave you with these three powerful and focused proposals, themes, mottos of Andrew Yang and his candidacy.